put the focus of our work, kind of on a national scale. And so we decided to have a panel because there were some amazing academics who were doing research on the impact of community media. And we had this panel called Community Media is Having a Moment. And it was looking at the fact that these academics had been recently publishing studies about their work. And the conversation was moderated by Molly de Aguar from the Independence Public Media Foundation. And it used the research and writings of the panelists, Patricia Ofter-Heide from American University, Antoine Haywood, who's at the University of Pennsylvania, Clemencia Rodriguez and Andrea Wenzel at Temple University, as a jumping off point to discuss how community media and community-centered journalism has become even more necessary during this national crisis. There were so many great moments. I loved in particular how the panelists kind of shared their moment of knowing that community media became something that they wanted to pursue in their lives. And in a moment, Antoine Haywood is gonna join us to be talking about his experience on the panel. But first, let's take a look at this clip where Clemencia Rodriguez is effectively questioning the premise of the panel and wonders, is community media really having a moment? Let's take a look at the clip.
Looking at it from a global perspective is that I don't think community media is having a moment. I think it depends on the place, and in some places, like in Latin America, probably community media is having a moment because they go hand in hand with social unrest, and social movements in Latin America are growing exponentially, and every year there's more and there's more people and they're more connected. And there's, young women's movements in Argentina fighting to legalize abortion, student movements in Chile for public education, farmers movements in Colombia fighting against free trade agreements. And as soon as you look at any of those movements, you start finding community media. And people appreciate community media and how community media are supporting the social movements. In other places like Australia, where community radio is 40 years old, I don't know. I think community radio is kind of getting too established for its own good. So with Heather Anderson, an Australian professor, we wrote an article recently, and part of her take is that community radio in Australia is kind of decreasing its creativity and kind of finding where it is needed in the community. Now, in the US, I agree with Pat. I think what we're seeing is that community media in the US, everyone is finding out that it has great potential, but what you find at every step of the way is the precariousness of the support. So in my view, for community media to make it, civil society has to support it. It's not going to be able to do it on its own. So universities have to support it, local governments have to support it, foundations have to support it, because, they're not for profit. So their financial support is going to have to come from somewhere. So I think we all here in the US, those of us who know about community media, I think we all agree on the potential. But it's a potential that still has to be realized, and we need, the infrastructural support to get, for example, in my view, it's totally insane to expect citizens to be reporters or community members to be community reporters without any kind of compensation. That just leads to bad journalism. And so then when you go and when someone goes to examine the type of journalism that is coming out of community media, they're saying, well, but look at this. I mean, it's not professional. It's not at the professional level. And then you go, well, of course, because there's no training, there's no funding, there's no support, so that's unsustainable.
That was such a great clip and an awesome panel to start off this whole fest with, because it is the crux of our People Power Fest, right? I wanted to talk to Antoine, who was a part of that panel you saw there, to talk a bit about his involvement in the panel, and what his point of view was in bringing and talking about why community media is having a moment. So welcome, Antoine.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's great to see everyone. Great to
Yeah.
be here. Yeah. I think, one of the biggest things that I was really feeling in the panel in terms of when we talk about community media having a moment is I just keep thinking intersections, and I see more and more overlap that's happening, and particularly in community media in the US. And even things that may not self-identify as community media or may not think of as community media in terms of like, well, PEG television or community radio, but there's a lot of there's a resurgence of local journalism, participatory journalism. There is a lot that's being growing in the terms of digital literacy, digital equity building. There's building up libraries. There's a lot of like intersecting points that I think it's really a opportune moment where the wave is crescendoing for organizations like Philly Cam throughout the country to really start, to continue to build on and like Clemencia says, like really kind of strengthening that infrastructure. So, but I mean, I totally agree with Clemencia. If we don't get this wholesale like community buy-in, then who knows what's going to happen, because it does look precarious right now. That was one of the things that we talked about in our study. So that a lot of people appreciated what community access media centers that are grounded by PEG channels. They appreciated the work that they did in the early months of the pandemic, but the future is still uncertain. So there's still a lot of hard work to do, but there's some great opportunities for us to continue building on partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was quite a lot of, interesting points of views that were brought onto that panel. And I think there's something to be said about the diversity even within that panel. Like, it was interesting being, even just part of the crew to hear from these different areas, and Clemencia bringing, her point of view in the different areas that she's seen and how it has worked. So, Anton, what do you feel is like the importance of having a roundtable discussion such as this one involved in the People Power Media Fest as like a whole? Like, how do you feel like that is significant being tied together?
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to that word intersections, and seeing how things connect. I really, the way that Clemencia just laid out also, she just gave you like a really, really quick survey of community, like global survey of community media, of people who really want to dive into a very rich global survey of community media. Ellie Rennie's book is tops, but there's a lot of other great literature out there. But things like having these conversations are very important, because we can see the interconnectedness, right? And the multifacetedness of community media. And I think when we really, for those of us who've practiced in the PEG sphere, it can be siloed at times, And so I think it's really important for organizations like Philly Cam to be having these conversations with, partners that are like right nearby to say like, oh, there's relationships here, and it's not just about public access television or community radio. It's bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very much like the people components of it too, right? It's people creating the media. There was some really heartwarming moments in that panel, specifically like Gretchen mentioned, like everyone kind of coming to this understanding of what they loved about community media. But we also had, a mother who was on the panel whose daughter joined us during the call, right? Like, she was also there kind of voicing her opinion. We gave her a little lower third of Ruby. And I feel like that, just having that presence really brought it home of like, this is about community media. Like, these are real people who are making these messages, and that we can, trust them and also like support them in creating that message. So I thought that was definitely one of my favorite events. There's so many that are great that we're going to kind of go over. I did want to offer up to anyone who's here in the Zoom call, if you have any comments or anything that you want to say about the Community Media is Having a Moment panel. Otherwise, we can move on to the next one. All right. Let's see. So another important panel that we had was the Community Radio Regional Roundtable. It's a tongue twister. This roundtable featured PhillyCam and Prometheus Radio Project, bringing scrap radio colleagues together to highlight how our region's community radio stations are addressing audience information needs, connecting communities during the time of crisis, and preparing to cover election and post-election events. Presented in partnership with Scrap, which is the swarming community radio around Philadelphia, and a project of Prometheus Radio Project. So let's take a look at a clip from that panel, and then we will talk to our own Allison Durham of WPPM and Keith Brand as well. So let's take a look.
So I'd like to ask you if you could tell me a story or a couple stories about something that really struck you as a real success. Perhaps something, a moment that you knew that you were really reaching your community. I'm guessing you all have stories like that. So let's go. Daniel, how about you? Do you have like success stories that you'd like to share with us about the work that you're doing in your community?
Yes, when it comes with the community, since GATA focuses on the immigrant community, when the pandemic hit, some people had economic relief, but the immigrant community didn't really receive any much help. So what GATA did, we asked for grants in order to have an economic relief so we can provide it to our community. And then we also asked for donations for people who are generous enough to donate, and we can help other families. And when we did that, the support that people came out with was just pretty enormous. Like, I was surprised by the amount of people who actually came out and wanted to support our community. So that was really, really special to see.
Tom, how about you? And this could be pre-COVID too. Something that happened at your radio station where you just knew that you were making an impact on your community.
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of them. So trying to pick one that happens most recently. I'll do one. We're always talking about news and information. I'm going to kind of go to a different aspect, and that's something that kind of hit me just most recently. We have a program on that does live radio theater, and it's live. They do scripts, so all the actors are now remote. So it's kind of interesting to have them kind of doing their voices remotely, not in the same room, but doing it live. But at the end of one of the programs, one of the actresses made a statement that, thank you so much for giving us this platform, because stage is not happening right now. We're not having an opportunity to perform in front of an audience. And you are providing this live response. We're not just reading a script that's being pre-produced like we've done in other things, but we actually have an audience right now that we know is tuning in. And it was very emotional, and how she, she was breaking up when she was talking about it. You could feel it was genuine and real. I kind of got a little weepy myself hearing her talk about it.
Awesome. Yeah, people forget that we are a TV and radio station, right? Our content is across both platforms. It's super important. And so I want to talk to Keith Brand and Allison Durham here from WPPM about this panel and its importance in the PPM Fest. Lots of PPMs happening. So welcome, Allison and Keith. Thank you both for joining me. So good to see you. I have just a general question for both of you in what you kind of found was super important of getting these different diverse voices together to talk about radio, and to even bringing up like pre-COVID and like during COVID, like what kind of content we're creating and how we are helping our communities. Like, what did that mean to you to get those voices together?
I'll jump in real quick, just to say that for me, this conversation was really important to organize because there's so much that we can learn from each other. as community radio stations in the area. And this was definitely an opportunity not only to engage in ways that we actually hadn't before. Some of these relationships were new. And I think specifically in this moment of real crisis, we know that the only way that we're going to best serve our communities is if we're intentional about it. And also, again, as you know, if we're connected to even surrounding communities, right? Like, you know, the folks in Germantown, WPPM broadcasts mainly in Center City, South Philly, but, you know, we don't reach Germantown, but there's so much to learn there in that relationship. And like Tom Cassetta was saying, you know, even his story about reaching folks through live radio theater, that's something, hey, I look back and say WPPM can do something similar, you know, provide live music somehow. You know, these things are very inspiring. So that's those are two of my thoughts about why it was so important.
Awesome.
Gabe, my initial reaction on hearing and looking at that clip was, I have no idea why I was yelling at everybody. It just seemed like I was, you know, I was just so loud. So that feels horrifying. So I've been working with community radio and researching community radio for a number of years. I've been working on a book on community radio and the life of America for what seems like decades. So every time I get to hear these stories of people and what they're doing in their local communities, it's just very inspiring to me, because we work at a micro level in community radio and don't often have this opportunity, or really, you know, we're so busy in community media that we don't often have time to make these bridges with people outside our communities. And I think it's so important because we learn a lot by listening to these other stories and seeing what other people are doing. Everything from the voter registration drives that the station in Wilmington was doing to, you know, radio theater in Germantown. So I just really enjoy hearing those stories, and it's very inspiring. I do want to add, though, and this is something that we don't often talk about in community media in terms of effectiveness and our moment. I feel like when somebody is able to create media and be able to get the tools to distribute media, that in itself is incredibly empowering. So I never felt like it was as important that, you know, we had an audience, even though that's great. But I do feel like everybody is changed when they get a chance to tell their own stories. And I think that's overlooked sometimes when we talk about community media.
Yeah, I agree completely in that, you know, it's just getting that kind of strength to be able to tell the story and get your message out there. I also think if you are passionate about it, Keith, go ahead and shout and scream about how excited you are on that panel, because that's always fun. And you can definitely see the passion in there for sure. I did want to ask you, Keith, like, because we can always go and view the panel as well, but are there any major takeaways that you had from some of the conversations throughout that panel that kind of like stuck with you afterwards, where you're like, I would have never known that, or wow, that's like super motivating, and, you know, being thankful to have that opportunity to talk to them?
I think the individual stories are what are super motivating. I think we're all doing great work here at PhillyCam. I can't say this enough. Every time, you know, pre-COVID days when I would walk into that building and just see every space of that building being used, that to me is incredibly empowering, because Gretchen, you know, you and I have been in this fight for many, many years, and to be able to walk into a building where it's just like all times of the day, people are working, you know, doing all sorts of great stuff. So, you know, getting outside of our community and hearing what other people are doing, to me, was the takeaway of that panel, and just all the great work people are doing in their, you know, in their silos. And, that's kind of, we sometimes say silos are bad, but, sometimes silos can be good.
Yeah, they're good when we can share them, right? Like we get to dip our toe into the different silos for sure. Yeah, I think especially during this time, something like the PPM Fest was so great in connecting us in a time when we kind of feel very distant, and being able to kind of make those connections, which was just awesome, and connect in different ways. Like we said, it was a month-long event that we're wrapping up now, but it featured panels just like the ones that we just showed, but it also had some workshops. So I'm going to lead us into our next section, but if you do have any questions for Keith or any of the other panelists, drop them in the chat because we want to hear from you. But we also had workshops. So in addition to those, we had workshops that were about media literacy and access. So these workshops included the media literacy interactive event and animating people power, stop motion animation workshop. And we are going to show you a clip from one of those workshops called Do You See What I See?
This is a series that Ariel and I put together really with the idea of doing more media literacy programming at PhillyCamp and using our awesome community of community media producers as the base of content for which we can learn to think more critically together about the media that we make and share and kind of consume.
I think that this question is really interesting because we all don't experience media in the same way. Like each person, each audience member, each creator is kind of bringing their own set of life experiences to the table.
As I get older,
I realize my jet black curls are not what the world wants. They are not curls, they are coils that wind tight and grow tall.
It made me think of my relationship to my siblings as someone who can provide a different voice than what the world tells them. And I think about that daily with especially my younger sister who is 10 years younger than me.
Here's an old college I'm sorry letter. I'm sorry that my note this morning was so ugly. I've been feeling miserable lately. I shouldn't take it out on you.
It was really amazing how the letter just felt universal. Like a letter is timeless, and it just made me want to go read my old letters and write letters.
And it's amazing how long it's been since I've thought about actually penning something. Part of what media does, at least in my opinion, is give us a chance to look at our experiences and celebrate them.
Those who don't feel comfortable in their assigned gender might determine that they are transgender or genderqueer, and then transition or change how they perform their gender.
What, if anything, did you learn about yourself from watching this?
It made me think about how much I brace myself when I commit to having these conversations with people about like what I want to be called, my pronouns. I think in the way that it was very disarming and playful, it kind of like invited me to relax.
We carry water from the river in Babu. The army came to our village. The army came back and burned our village.
The fear of like having to move out of your village because of the army, coming to burn down, and having to gather your loved ones and also enough food for survival. But just to think about your resilience, or like the story of resiliency, and like being able to like go on that journey and continue to travel, of course, was just like really, really powerful. I really loved the choice to overlap voices. At first it was I thought something might have been up with my computer, like it was echoing, but the repetition and hearing multiple voices say the same line just really, really spoke to me.
Wow, what awesome workshops. It's so great. This month, had so much going on, like the month long of our event, from, the elections, like we mentioned, but also Media Literacy Week happened in the middle of this, right? So it's important to kind of drive home something that we're so passionate about. So I wanted to bring in Laura to talk about these workshops, kind of the decision behind selecting these specific ones, and what we saw in there. I really just even from seeing that clip and knowing the members that participated, it's great to see this kind of mix, because some of these are members that are brand new who took the intro class virtually with me, to people who like had signed up right before COVID hit, to people who've been here since the beginning. So it's so awesome to kind of see them come in together in a virtual room, in a virtual space, to talk about these things that we're so passionate about. So Laura, thank you for creating those events, you and Ariel. It's super awesome. What came, like, how did you decide that those were the workshops that you were going to focus on, like in the importance of kind of bringing those in specifically for People Power Media Fest?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, Media Literacy Week happens every year. It's a week-long event organized by the National Alliance for Media Literacy Education. And, you know, Ariel and I are always looking for opportunities to collaborate more just between the youth media program and the general educational programs. And also, how do we bring media literacy more into the core workshops that we do at PhillyCam? And so this was just a really great opportunity to sort of select producers who made short form pieces, have series, produce audio content, documentary, and really like flip the script a little bit and make it about the audience and give people a sense to have this collective viewing experience, and then share their feedback, right? Because oftentimes you go and you get a Q&A and it's always like the artist or the producer that speaks. And what they really want to know is like, was the media that I created effective? How did it impact people? And so it was really fun to kind of have that experience together and watch media together and talk about it.
Yeah, I think, you know, during this time, since we are, you know, remote, right? We're remote learning, that it kind of gives us the opportunities to be more focused on our message and kind of sit back and digest and learn from those things instead of just hands-on, like getting in the studio. Like, it's more than that, right? There's some really cool ones in there. I wanted to see, were there any highlights from the you know, discussions that happened and occurred, or projects that might have come from that you were like, wow, this is so cool?
Yeah, I think just, you know, when you have the opportunity to curate work and then you have kind of a captive audience there were definitely people that would not have seen and heard some of those voices before, and were able to really speak honestly about the way they thought about the concept of you know, being transgender or queer, or thought about this idea of, you know, curating your radio show through the concept of like the postal service, right? And bringing like themes into like the current themes into a radio show playlist, for example. I think that people really just, resonated with hearing from each other and what we did was we picked 4 works and we mostly showed clips. So I think it got people excited to go back and see the work in full, to sort of even learn more about that producer or other projects that they might be working on. So hopefully the idea with this is to be able to offer, to do a focused workshop like this on each key media literacy question. So this really focused on the question of how do different people understand this media message differently? So hopefully there's more to come, and each workshop will focus on a different question and bring new producers into the room to think about it.
Yeah, definitely things to look forward to. We could see the success even just in this workshop, that people are very excited and are getting something out of it. So if you are interested in those workshops, you can email Laura at phillycam.org or check out our website to see what workshops are coming up soon. And make sure that if you have any questions, you're dropping them in the chat, like I said. But I will move on to the next thing, because like I said, there's a lot of things that happened during our People Power Media Fest, including the election, right? We wanted to make sure that we were vocal and that we were, you know, enhancing the voices of our community and our producers. And so we created a twice a week produced program called What's at Stake, that featured our PhillyCam producers who were using their show and platform to talk about issues related to the election that affected them directly, and to educate and inform their community members. And so let's take a look at a clip, and then I will be joined by Dennis Link and Shamel Jordan to talk about their experiences in creating live election programming.
The first thing I'd like to talk about, from a national standpoint, we're looking at probably the most consequential election of our lifetime.
Hello, welcome to Philly Cam's special election coverage.
Hello, and welcome to the Trudy Haynes with Friends program.
Welcome to the Girls Next Door with live election coverage.
Welcome to Looking Forward Philadelphia.
Hello, welcome to Philly Cam's special live election programming.
Hoy nos acompaña Fernando Torres. Bienvenido, Fernando. Fernando está hoy representando a COLAFI. COLAFI, pues, la coalición de latinos en Filadelfia.
Probably the biggest topic that anyone is talking about, if we're all honest with ourselves, is still the coronavirus. Anything that takes over 200,000 people out of the equation is going to be something that folks are focused on.
I do want to talk about Georgia for a second, because Georgia, to me, is going to, I think, going to be the tipping point state in this whole situation. And I say this for many reasons. One is that Georgia, very similar to North Carolina, and to some degree like in Arizona, even though the vibe is a little different, is changing very rapidly.
It's traditional for Democrats that win statewide in Pennsylvania to only do well in like 15 counties. Like, you can win Pennsylvania if you win like 15, 16 counties.
It's almost like it's blasphemous if Black people are questioning the political systems that be, the very systems that have had a history for over 400 years of not being kind to us and actually being quite oppressive.
So when people migrate to this part of United States, there is not really migrating because people want to live where they live or where they're from. It's because economical empowerment the United States create and another problem in another countries, it forces mass migration.
It's going to be such an impact to even know that you are part of this country.
We have a lot of systems in place right now that are harming people that we care about and making this not a free country, right? And it is doing what it was set up to do, which is to harm us and only cater to a very specific small population. And so we need to continue doing it. Like, don't get comfortable and placated. Don't think that a Biden win equals win for the whole country. That's not true, right? Like, we still have so much that we have to fight for, and we cannot sit back and ignore what's going on outside our doors. And I'm back. That was me a few minutes ago. Yes, What's at Stake was such a great experience personally working on that, but it was so fun to watch all the different producers create this content, live content, that was to TV and radio. It was this great kind of like cohesion of our channels to get together. And so I wanted to talk to Dennis Lincoln and Shamel Jordan about their experiences creating live programming. There's a lot that went into it, pre-production wise and getting it, together. But there's also, thinking about the topics that you're going to cover and the importance of it. And so I just wanted to kind of pick your brains about what you found was, really significant about having a show like What's at Stake and being a part of it, like what you brought to it with your program. This is open to both of you.
All right. Well, it looks like I unmuted first. So, Shamel, I'll take the lead here. I think it was really great because it gave us the opportunity to talk about issues that I don't think were brought up enough in what we call the mainstream media. I think there was, a lot of issues that was really good that we got into with Denise Clay, the Philadelphia Sun reporter, where we talked about, how do African Americans feel about this election? How do women feel about this election? There was a lot of talk about, Donald Trump, his approval ratings being really bad, with women in the suburbs, especially. So we had the opportunity to talk about those things, and also some races that weren't getting a lot of attention by, say, the Philadelphia Inquirer or some of the electronic media, when we talked about the fact that, there were statewide races, for executive office in Pennsylvania. There were House races in Pennsylvania and Senate races. And there were, and how important those are to the overall equation, that, yes, the presidential election. As my colleague Vincent Thompson likes to say, that's the sexy election, right? That's the one that everybody pays the most attention to. But what's happening at the state and local level is in some ways even more important because it affects your life on a very daily basis. So we had the opportunity to talk about those things, talk about these different races, and talk about these issues that weren't really being brought forward, in my opinion, in other venues. So that's what I thought was really valuable about what's at stake.
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis. What about you, Shamel?
For me, I was first honored to be asked. I don't do kind of like a news or a talk show. I do a genealogy show. So it's like, why are you calling me? But it gave me the opportunity to stretch. It gave me the opportunity to spend time with people who were on the ground. And that was the NAACP. My show was mail-in ballots. And spending time with the folks at the NAACP who's working on education and everything, I mean, they were not battle weary at all. I mean, they were strong. I mean, they lifted me up and they made me feel that what I was doing was the right thing, kind of stepping out of my comfort zone. And I would like to just say one thing about the Philly Cam family. As far as going live, Laura knows I am not the live chick. I am the one who has to have everything written down. Everything is in, when I did my first live show, Laura had to be there. And if you watch it closely, my fingers are gripped and my neck is stretched. But once the pandemic started, Charles said, you producers, get out there and produce. And because of Philly Cam, by the time you guys came and asked me to do this live show, Charles already had us doing lives like every week. And so that really helps to get the individual message out. And like Antoine said, the intersections, we came at it we saw so many different ways to look at the election and what's affecting us as people.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And look, you're still doing live. You're live right now. You're a pro already. Yeah, I think, What's at Stake was such a phenomenal series because it was, the full encompassing vision of what Philly Cam is, because all of these voices are so unique, right? Like we have genealogy, quick start, and we have hall monitor, right? We have radio, we have TV producers who are doing both now and live, which was like super stressful, I'm sure. But everyone really came through.
Gabe, you know what was really cool is seeing the radio people. You can see them. Like, I love that. So Keith, don't give yourself, you are a radio guy. It's okay. You can yell if you want, it's all right.
Yes. And I think that was a really exciting part of that too, was to kind of see the radio producers and being on the TV side primarily for me as part of the team was so nice to kind of see those faces that I don't get to see and get to work alongside Allison and then, introduce her to the TV side of things too, right? It was super cool. I wanted to kind of plug a few of the others or the rest of the producers who were also involved to give them a nice shout out because you really came through making live content and dealing with us as staff being like, we got to have this in, we're supporting you. So the other producers who were involved in What's at Stake were Ken Hurd, Jeffrey Abramowitz, Brujo de la Macha, Vivian Crawford, Ray Colazzo, Ernest Owens, Tony J. Jones, Trudy Haynes, Ariane Brasho, and even me and my co-host, Kat Cushion, which was, similar to Shamel. We don't do a show that's political usually or about those issues, but it was fun to do that, to kind of rethink our show and our program and to do this and be supported in that place. I can say that for sure. I did want to see, because Dennis, you do live hall monitor with Allison, but what was it like doing this, live to also TV? How was the preparation for that for you?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of the same things. I always like to bring a lot of facts and statistics. I prepare a lot of material going in so that, we can make statements and sort of say, and here's some, corroborating, facts to back that up. So we did do that, but we're not used to the whole video side of it. As a matter of fact, that was one of the biggest reasons I wanted to go into radio, more so than the TV side. Was just I like the fact that there's only one element. You know, you have your content, you have your audio, and that's it. So it was interesting that we knew we were also going to be visual, and so it was important to know how to share screen, do all these things to take visual elements. And then the other thing is once you had those, it's a little bit strange because in radio you have to be very descriptive, but in the fact that we knew that there was video portion of this, in some ways it was a little easier because we could kind of refer to the visual. So we liked the opportunity, and we liked the fact that we got to work with people on the TV side, and the fact that people that watch Philly Cam and might not be as familiar with the radio station, we're getting to know us as producers from the radio side. So I just thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And next time, Gabe, I would like to have Miss Trudy's lighting. Like, I don't know what was going on and how she got that, but I would like to have her lighting.
Me too. I'm missing out on that a little bit too. Absolutely. And, as a TV side, I'm definitely excited to see if our radio producers kind of caught the TV bug and want to also create content for TV, and then vice versa for TV producers on the radio. I love that. But I'm going to move on because we have so much to cover, and, including, really diverse and specific voices. We also have a phenomenal radio program here produced by it's a youth-led radio program called Hear Us Out, and they developed 3 episodes that were live for the People Power Media Fest. So let's take a look at a clip from that show, and then we're going to be talking to Edward Washington about his involvement in it.
Happy Community Media Day, and our first topic for Hear Us Out is going to be remote learning.
Me and Sam, who's our social media director, we were talking about the difference between online learning for a high school student and a college student, because she's a high school senior and I'm a college freshman. So we were kind of just talking about our days and everything, and how maybe they could be different or how they're the same in any type of way. So we decided to do little TikTok videos where we did like little day in our lives.
After COVID, there was a significant increase in the number of students that switched over to online schools, because most parents thought that, hey, online schools already know what they're doing. We don't have to worry about the transition so much. And they started searching around for schools that they thought were good fits for their students.
We are here to talk to you about the election today.
Well, it's actually the first time I did mail-in voting, and it was fairly simple. I filled out the form, voted my choice, put it into this secret envelope, and then inserted that envelope into the envelope that was to be mailed. And I mailed it.
If you had to choose, would you rather vote in person or by mail?
Under these circumstances, in view of the fact that that COVID-19 is around, and I'm an older person, and it's much safer to do it by mail, I did it by mail.
So you guys are first-time voters?
Yes.
Wow, that's exciting.
You want to talk a little bit about like the protests and everything, because I know that you specifically talked about the Supreme Court-elect Amy Coney Barrett, which, we all know is a little bit questioning.
Right. You have racial uprisings that are happening because of a lot of extrajudicial police killings that are happening, particularly to Black people. But then you're also seeing a situation where a lot of people are scared about these Supreme Court nominations.
You guys still have a lot of time. You could go right now and still go and vote. If you have not gotten the opportunity to go and vote today, please make sure that if you are registered to go to those polls, and vote. It's very important. Your voice is important, and it's important that your voice is heard.
I love Hear Us Out. I always learn something, and I'm always like, I feel like my finger's on the pulse whenever I'm watching that show and listening in, because it's a radio show. So Edward, I want to invite you to talk about your experiences, specifically kind of about Hear Us Out as a whole, and why it's important to have these specific voices on the airwaves and available for people to hear.
Well, first, I would like to say thanks for being here. I like being here so far. I love seeing all this different content going on.
Yeah, thanks for joining
I'm
us.
like the youngest one here. But yeah, what we try to do for Hear Us Out, like, we think that it's important for young folks to, like, you know, hear us out, because we don't get a lot of, like, in the limelight, we don't get a lot of shine during, like, the mainstream media when it comes to, like, politics. And like when it comes to like talking about societal issues, and just having a platform like this, like Hear Us Out and Philly Cam, you know, we'll be able to do that. So we're just glad we're able to do that.
Yeah, it's super important. And I feel like, you know, you're learning along the way as well, and kind of doing your due diligence and then sharing that knowledge with your fellow youth. So it's like kind of looking back on the other episodes that you've done, because this is, you know, a series that is active and has, you know, been created even before People Power Media Fest, and then 3 special live episodes for People Power Media Fest. Are there any kind of topics that you covered in previous episodes that you feel really strongly about, that like sat with you, and that you feel like there should be more media coverage of those?
I think it's our election episode. I think like it should be more like media coverage for like youth. I don't want to like you know like actually like, you know, how I put this, like I don't want to like force it down like their throat and be like, oh yeah, you gotta learn this, that, and the third, all this about politics. Just like gradually come towards like, hey, this is what politics is all about. Because I remember learning it at a young age, like in elementary school, then I had to relearn it again, like, oh wait, I forgot. I wish I had like more programs that like, you know, we stay consistent with it, like, hey, this is what's going on in today's world with the president or our mayor or our governor, and like more media create towards our community government as well. Learn about our mayors, our township, our deputies, all that stuff. Just like learn where you live at.
Yeah, I think with all of the different programs that we have seen and seen clips of and have seen throughout People Power Media Fest, it really is like, you know, telling you what you need to hear in a way that you're going to be, you know, interested in. Like, so it's not like someone lecturing you. It feels like, you know, oh, I get that, or I can, you know, that matters to me because it affects me directly, instead of just being like, you know, someone on mainstream media talking about the whole country. It could be like, what is happening here in Philadelphia? What is happening to people who look and are like me, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any last things that you want to talk about Hear Us Out? You know, where can people listen to you all?
You listen to us on Facebook, YouTube Live, Philly Cam, YouTube channel. And one thing I like to say about Hear Us Out is we are like constantly growing with the production, getting more comfortable being on TV, being more comfortable doing like a live stream version of a live, you know, television show. Like I'm not used to the whole Zoom thing. I'm thinking like live TV, like, yeah, studio, Philly Cam, 7th and Market, you know, we're going to show out. And it's like, oh wait, I got to do it in my room. And load the computer. All right, let's do this. So like just getting comfortable in that new way of doing television. So
yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, a lot of us are kind of getting acclimated to that. Right? It's actually very weird for me to be here at Philly Cam. But yeah, it opens up new doors, because then we can have new content that we wouldn't have had before, because it's more accessible, right? So thank you so much, Edward, for sharing your thoughts. Before we close out Behind the Fest, we're going to dive into, you know, talking to some of the producers and organizers who had events and, you know, pieces that were created during the People Power Media Fest. And, you know, it kind of brings together our themes, all these very diverse programs. So I am going to invite quite a few people to talk with me, so bear with me as I introduce them all. So for one, we have Sasha Taylor, who is the producer and host of the Dear Me Roundtable. This was a hosted conversation among community media producers to explore the various conversations we would have with our younger selves if given the opportunity. We have Selena Yip, who is the festival director of PAAF, the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival. She is here to discuss the Deconstructing Documentary Filmmaking panel that we shared on our channel during PPM Fest. That festival panel aimed to turn a critical eye to the documentary filmmaking process from ideation to distribution, and ask some really important questions about decolonizing the industry. We have Gerard Silva, who's the Exhibitions and Special Projects Manager for Fleischer Art Memorial. He was involved in the Dia de los Muertos procession by Fleischer Art Memorial that we filmed, and this was members of the Kalaka Flaka honored the deceased with a solemn procession to the 4 community altars in 4 cardinal parts of the city, east, west, south, and north. And so we'll talk to him. And then last but not least, we also have producer extraordinaire Shamika Sawyer, who was involved in quite a few things during this festival, including an episode of Live Culture with The Screening Room, which was a showcase of short films, poetry, and audio addressing social justices. And then as well as The American Crisis, which is a musical that follows the journey of 3 African-American college students and their thoughts about democracy and the importance of voting. So quite a lot of very diverse programs that we had going on, which was phenomenal to kind of give them this platform to be accessible to our viewers and listeners. So I kind of wanted to open up to any of you who are here to kind of just talk about what you feel was the benefit of, having something like the People Power Media Fest as a platform to get this message out or to kind of highlight this event that was going on and to share with the community. I can also call on people if we're feeling nervous.
I guess I'll start. Hi, everyone. Sasha here. I think that this People Power Media Fest was such an amazing opportunity to really put out such a variety of different topics, right? I think it was necessary. And I think not only because of the different creatives behind these many different topics, but the fact that we get to lend a voice to so many other people who may be going through and experiencing the same things, but maybe they didn't know, or maybe they didn't have the platform. I mean, of course we have social media, but I just feel like with independent media, it is so necessary. And I think it really allows viewers to see that, this is something that I can really relate to. And I just think it just gives such an amazing platform to these different stories and these different topics so that people can talk about it. And the variety was amazing. I mean, there was so much stuff that was talked about. So I just think it's just phenomenal all the way around.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll hop in. It's Shamika. First, I want to say, wow, what a phenomenal job that everyone did for this festival. Like, just sitting here watching everything, I'm just like, this is amazing. So thank you guys for that. I would also like to put out there too, to me, this festival was for the people and created by the people. So that's why I was so excited when Nasha put out a call for ideas. I had to hop in there because I'm like, I have to be a part of this. Like, I've been to many different media festivals, and I can say that this is one of the festivals that really focus on amplifying the voice of the people. So to me, that is what really got me interested, and I was just so excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. It was a phenomenal opportunity to hear from other producers and see kind of what they were creating and get them all under one umbrella, right? Which was super awesome. We also, Sasha and Shamika, your programs were created very specifically kind of under the PPM Fest umbrella, but Gerard and Selena, you had content that was happening elsewhere as well as the PPM Fest. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain about what you felt the value was of also being on Philly Cam, and how you fit into, like, your programs fit into our core themes about representation, access, and literacy.
I can start. So for our panel, I mean, the reason why I felt like it was really important to have the conversation about deconstructing documentary filmmaking, decolonizing the practices around documentary filmmaking, both as filmmakers and as consumers, was actually mostly on the consumer end. I think for me, something that I was experiencing was that a lot of my my programmers, my screeners, and then also a lot of our audiences have never really had the conversation about what it means to decolonize the film industry. So for me, it was really important to have a platform where people are mostly our audiences would be able to listen to filmmakers talk about why it's so important for them to practice filmmaking in the way that they do. So I was really, really grateful to have this opportunity to partner with Philly Cam, to have this also be broadcast on Philly Cam's channels, because I wanted as many people to watch this as possible, since we really covered everything from filmmaking all the way to distribution. Sridevi was from WHYY, was our moderator, and also provided so much as a moderator to talk about programming and distribution. So I think it was great because we had a lot of people who really learned a lot, and we had audience members who were asking questions in the comments like, you know, how do I be a better consumer? Like, what can I do to make sure that I am supporting the films or the works that I should be supporting that are coming from within a community? So yeah, that really, really excited and really, really glad that this lived on both of these platforms and had such a large audience.
Yeah, it's such an important conversation to have, and definitely fits like very uniquely into what Philly Cam is, and even kind of gets roped into our media literacy workshop, right? And thinking of like why, like who is making this content, and who is it for, and what is it doing when people are watching it. So thank you for that. Gerard, what are your thoughts in your event that you had?
Sure, yeah. First of all, thank you to everyone in this group. Amazing work, amazing programming. Anyway, you know, this year it was a challenge. It was a total challenge for me. I had to make a procession that we do every year that attracts over 1,000 people. How do I do it with this, you know, with COVID, you know? And thanks to Laura and Sergio for allowing me to actually have the opportunity to actually broadcast this to everyone, to the whole community. So we were inviting people not to join us, but to join us online instead. And I was able to be inclusive and include everyone. We were going to different parts of Philadelphia, and it was all possible thanks to you.
Yeah, I think, you know, with, again, this time, you know, most things are virtual, which makes them kind of a little more accessible than they were before, right? Like if people, you know, didn't have the time or the ability to come out, they can still experience these events and get to kind of get that whole experience right on their screens and safely at home. So thank you so much for creating this content and allowing us to have it as part of our People Power Media Fest, because it definitely fit, and it was, you know, a great little addition to this. I do have a question for Shamika and Sasha about, you know, the screening room and the Dear Me Roundtable were created, you know, with the People Power Media Fest. So whereas, you know, the Dia de los Muertos and the decolonizing conversation were going to happen without People Power Media Fest, we were just, you know, a helpful addition, right? What was your experience of creating that and making it specifically for the People Power Media Fest, and what you got out of that?
Okay, I'll go. So I saw this as a great opportunity to bring to light, I guess, some sections of creative arts that doesn't get the spotlight as much. So normally I focus on film. That's my deal, video production. But this event gave me the opportunity to focus on film, but spoken word and poetry, which I always wanted to do. And I looked at this opportunity as the best opportunity to do that. So for me, it was like curating this in a way that with film, you can visualize, you can see what's happening, right? But with poetry, it's like the words are the visuals. So you are creating this atmosphere, this environment with just words. And I can tell you, like, the conversation afterwards with the poet was so interesting. And just to hear from their perspective, like what it's like to be Black and in America, and to deal with some of the things that we have to face, and also how they create art to put these messages out there and to get people, bring them more into our world. So for me, it was needed. I'm happy that Philly Cam provided the platform to make this happen. And my hope is that whoever was able to watch it and experience this, that they learned something new and gained a better understanding of our world and some of the things that we face and go through.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had your hand in quite a few different mediums, right? Because you had the poetry, you had a musical, and then you also had the filmmaking salon, which was a conversation with women directors. So a lot of things that were going on during People Power Media Fest, and we were super thankful to have you as part of it. Sasha, you are a new member, and this was your first production with us. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and your experiences in creating content specifically for this.
I thought it was amazing. It's funny because I'm going to be putting out a short film that is kind of centered around the Dear Me Roundtable, and it kind of gives a little backstory as to what I was thinking in my vision. But when Nasha, Sergio, Gabe, you guys were like, hey, we can do something with this. And I was like, oh, okay. All right, great. I mean, I kind of felt like I was just not pushed in a way, not in a bad way, but it was kind of like somewhat of a push that I think I needed, because I think oftentimes when you are creative and you're coming up with stuff and you have this vision, it's hard for people to see your vision the same way you do. And it's great to be a part of a group where everyone is a visionary, right? Everyone has their own story. They have their own way of expressing things. And it's amazing when you're surrounded by a community like that. So this experience for me was hands down so amazing. I mean, I'll admit I was nervous at first, but I was so grateful at the way that it turned out, and to be able to have real conversations. And the topic that was centered around the Dear Me Roundtable was not an easy topic. It was pretty heavy. And it was great because I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, man, are people going to start crying? And, if they start crying, then I'm going to start crying. This is going to be a mess. And, but it was great because we were all able to laugh and talk and really just be real about our own individual experiences. And at the end of the day, that's what it all boils down to, right? Like, everyone has their own story. Everyone has their own truths that they're living in and walking in. And I think my biggest takeaway for people when they watched this was that they could see a bit of themselves throughout our different stories collectively and say, you know what, I'm not alone in what I'm feeling or what I've experienced as a child and things like that. So it was a great, great experience. And I'm so looking forward to doing so much more work. And I want to do so many short films. I've written down all these ideas, and it's just awesome. So I have such an attitude of gratitude for this opportunity, and it's given me the push to actually create my short film, because before I had kind of been dragging my feet. I had talked to Gabe months ago about this, and I was like, I'll get to it when I get to it. And Gabe was like, sit down and write your script. I'm like, I get there. And then I just said, you know what, let me jump right in and get to it. And it was probably the most cathartic, therapeutic thing I could have ever did, because I love to write, and to sit out and write my vision it was awesome. And just again, to be around people who understand and can see your vision, you know, it's like they get you. It's like, yeah, you understand me, you know, instead of talking to some people and they're like, whatever. But when you're in a community of other creatives and forward-thinking people, it gives you, it's like a warm hug, right? And it's very embracing, and you feel like, you know what, I'm in a great place. So yeah. Sorry, I'm off my soapbox now.
No, I'm glad you were on your soapbox, and that's what this platform is for. I love that attitude of gratitude, because I definitely have that for the full People Power Media Fest. I loved hearing all the different voices and seeing this content, and you know, motivating all of you to create your content. And you're a natural, just like Shamel's a natural being live, right? And to find that in yourself and to be in a community, which was really the heart of what the PPM Fest was. And so much happened during this People Power Media Fest that we do not have time to go over all of it, but definitely make sure that you check out our YouTube. We have plenty of playlists, so you can watch all those panels, you can hear about some of the workshops, you can watch some of these shows that we mentioned here. What's at Stake is fully on there. We also had, you know, awesome overnight marathons, so you can check that out from the programming spotlight to see what was counted. And I'm sure we have so much more ahead of us as well. And I just want to thank everyone who was involved, all the producers who are here with us virtually, and those who are, you know, at home and maybe typing in the chat for us or watching this later. Thank you so much for creating content, and big thanks to my fellow staff members who really put in a lot of work to make this happen. You know, it was such a great teamwork and effort and support that I definitely felt from this end, and in seeing us all being so excited to create this content. And so I do want to, before, you know, we kind of, you know, do the last thank yous and goodbyes, I did want to open up to the chat of our great staff that are here with me right now, just about like what, you know, are your lasting thoughts about this phenomenal event, what you really got out of it. Was it a success in your book? Do you want to do it again? And just what you loved about it. And I just want to invite anyone to speak on that. We could do like hand raises or the race to the unmute. Debbie.
Yeah, it's been really great to be on this event, just looking back on the last month with everyone. And, you know, this is the way that we're staying connected. You know, I have to be in front of my computer all the time anyway for the programming. So, you know, the opportunities that I have to see people in person are, you know, not as much necessarily even when our studios are open. But like, these are like really extreme circumstances. So I was just like, I really felt like people really came together around this. And yeah, that's really bolstering my spirit, you know, to continue to do this work. And yeah, I love working with you all. Thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly. Any other thoughts? Nasha, you got anything you want to share? You did a lot. You did so much work. I want to thank you for you and Sergio really kind of piloting this ship that was PPM Fest, really. So what, you know, what are your takeaways?
I'm having that moment where I can have a dozen things to say and I don't know which thought to let out first. But I am still energized by Sasha's experience with this, because I remember that conversation talking to you and, you know, trying to give you that good push. And so on the back end, we did this festival in 4 weeks, and I had my doubts and I had my reservations, because I was like, yikes, are we seriously doing our first time virtual 4-week fest in 4 weeks? Are y'all serious? But we sent out a form to everyone, and we just did this mass blast, and we said, hey, we want to do this thing. What would you bring to it? And the responses were so affirming and validating and energizing. And so it was that, even Shamika, with your response, and you were like, I want to help out. Like, how can we help? What can I do? And I was just like, you guys, Shamika wants to help. How do we plug her in? But you had 14 programs in the festival, so that was enough. I don't know how much more you could have done. But even right now, like, our Zoom chat on the back end is lit. I'm trying to make the online chats pretty live, but it's just me talking to myself. But just, it's like, we want to do this again and we want to do it more. So trying to imagine what this could be if we give ourselves 6 weeks to plan it, or maybe 3 months to plan it. I'm excited. It's good to be a member of a visionary creative community. That's cool.
Yeah. Yes. I think, with the that blanket call of just like, yeah, you got stuff, we want to put it on here. But it's very clear that there's this through line, this like heart that came through every single program, no matter what it was, whether it was a panel or a workshop or what's at stake. Like, it was all so much of the PhillyCam heart community that came through every single thing. And I think that is the true success of this, and I look forward to seeing what people create. Hopefully, you made those connections and you're going to get back into it, and whenever you need a push, you can check out PhillyCam to give you that push no matter what it is. But thank you all so much for joining us and for participating in the full People Power Media Fest, and sharing your thoughts and joining us even here to kind of look back and reflect at the success of it. But this was the behind the fest, so you got to see what went through and how people felt about creating this content. I'm Gabe Castro, and thank you for watching.